beautiful people, and welcome to season 2. Oh yeah, I should, the little, if you know, you know. But to season 2 of
TikTok.
the Hot Girls, yeah, exactly, of the Hot Girls Healing Podcast. So we got one season under our belt, and we back to do it again. It's like my sophomore album, but it's like my sophomore season of my podcast. So thanks for coming back, y'all. And for anyone who is just joining on this episode, welcome, you beautiful human. You come to the right space for self-love and for relationship healing. So I'm your host, Salenna Green, and today I am joined with the wonderful Rachel to talk about vulnerability, y'all. It's my doe eyes, okay? Because I've been vulnerable. Since season 1, I've been doing stuff. I have developed a self-love workshop. I've developed a self-love day retreat. So, if you're in the Seattle area, stay tuned and be looking out on Eventbrite. I have really been growing as a person. I developed and published the Self-Love Prompted Journal to help people who, like me, struggled with journaling and kind of where to start and how to feel safe in that vulnerable space. So this topic really couldn't be more relevant in my own life than it is right now. So welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. Gather in, gather around, whether you're watching this on video and seeing our beautiful faces or just listening to our lovely voices. We're happy to have you here with us today. So Rachel, let you introduce yourself to the people. No one knows you better than you, and no one knows how to present you better than you know how to present yourself. So we'll let
Hey,
Rachel tell you all who she is, and then we're going to jump into the conversation, honey.
let's get into it. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. My name's Rachel. I consider myself a creative. It's very hard for me to just say singer or writer or performer because I just love to create. You know what I mean? I'm just inspired by life. But in the creative sense, I write. I've written 4 books. I sing. I perform throughout New York City and New Jersey. And as far as outside of the creative space, I've spent roughly 10 years in sales.
Yes, a multi-talented Black woman. Come on now.
Come on now.
2024 is really the year of talking your shit. It's the year of not putting yourself down. It's the year of being your own number one fan. I'm yes, 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 yes. I'm so happy to have you here, Rachel. I'm so happy to have this space to share with you and this platform for you to come and share all your wisdom and your experience today. Thank you for sharing your energy and taking the time.
Likewise. Likewise. I swear we're on the same wavelength because I believe it was yesterday that I went on and did like a TikTok live, and I was saying, to me, this is the year of self. This is a year of
Mm.
focusing on self, pouring into self, speaking life into self. So when you're like, we're a number one fan, we're going hard, like we're on the same wavelength because a lot of times we just neglect ourselves. We put ourselves on the back burner. We're not paying attention to how we speak to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. So
Mm.
we're like right here. We're right here with that. Like this is a
No,
year of
it's so
self.
real.
It's not selfish. It's a year of self.
Yes, and that's the thing because like we even though this is such an individualistic culture within the US, we still really like shame people for loving themselves. Like you're supposed to be individualistic, but only because you hate everyone else slightly more than you hate yourself. Because you should still
Mm-hmm.
hate yourself.
Right.
And it's like if you dare to love yourself, if you dare to choose yourself, if you dare to expect like reciprocity in your relationships and want people to be there for you, or even have that capacity, it's like, oh, you're selfish, oh, you're self-centered, yada yada yada. None of that. None of that.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay to put yourself forward first. It is okay to know that you need people to pour into you. for you to have the ability and the capacity to pour into others. So yes, the year of self is not selfish.
At
Girl, we need to
all,
put that on a
at all.
t-shirt.
And because that's something I've, what was that?
We need to put that on a t-shirt.
Put that, yeah, put that on a
Self is
t-shirt.
not selfish.
Put that on a t-shirt, because that's something I've struggled with. I actually, I'm a giver by nature. I'm a giver by nature. So I actually do love to pour into people, and I don't mind pouring into people. But what I've found is that a lot of times I'm pouring into people and I'm kind of just like on the back burner. And then it's the other thing that you mentioned is that the reciprocation piece is important. Like you can't just be pouring, 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 and you're never being poured into as well. And even more so if you're not pouring into yourself as well. So,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's real to naturally be a caretaker. Like, I find that I am too. Like, I'm a Virgo, okay? Like, we want
hey, earth signs.
we
I'm a
love to
Taurus.
take care of people. You know, I want to cater to my man, all that. But like that can also lead to it being hard, you know, when it is time to ask for something for ourselves. And that actually leads me to the first thing that we have wanted to talk about today, because it's one thing to know that you need help, and it's another thing to even be able to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to let someone else help you, especially in our culture here in the United States, where if you're a woman or a femme, like regardless to whether you're naturally caring and want to take care of other people, you will absolutely, but damn sure, be conditioned into it. You will know that
Yeah,
society expects that of you, and to be
yeah,
always giving of yourself for other people. That's the minimum.
yeah, yeah,
I be seeing it on Facebook all the time in other spaces. Men will be like, "Oh, my mama struggled. She did everything herself, so it's hard for me to not expect a woman to do." Your mama was tired, sir.
exactly.
Your mama wanted some
Beyond,
help. She needed a
exactly,
village. She needed a community.
exactly.
Like,
No, you're spot on, and that's that sort of aligns with what I saw around me too. It's like people don't want to have to be strong all the time, but sometimes they know that if they're not, who's going to be there to pick them up? So we really do need that village. And I realized it's was it this past summer? Maybe the summer before. I think it was the summer
mhm,
before. Like a friend of mine got married, and we were just talking, and she was saying, like, Rachel, why is it so hard for you to admit that you need help with something or to accept help? Because it is, because I got kind of used to just like, I've got to, you know, I might be pouring into XYZ, but it's not necessarily reciprocated. So sometimes you just
mhm.
are on autopilot with being strong and saying, I've got it, I can do it myself. And you're not even, it's just not natural to say, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, this load is a little too heavy. Can you, help me here?
And the other thing is, like, just because you can do it yourself, should you? Is it
Yeah.
the best choice
No,
to do it yourself?
no,
Is it most
exactly.
efficient? Is it most sustainable? You know, because we can do a lot of things. Should we?
Yeah.
Is it
No,
the best thing for us?
no. I want ease. I really genuinely want to be like, calm. I'm an earth sign too. I'm a Taurus. I want peace,
Mm-hmm.
calm. Just I don't want chaos. You know what I'm saying? So that
Mm-hmm.
is the thing. It's like now I might want to hold on before I might hold on to something too long, but now you got to go if the chaos and you're interrupting the peace now, because this has
Mm.
become extremely important and sacred now. Like when you spend so much time dealing with chaos and always on the move and always on the go and figuring this out, at some point you're like, I just want peace, and like contribute to that or not. But if you are cool, let's be peaceful together, blah, 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 blah. Let's figure it out. If
Yes.
not, you gotta go. You gotta go. I don't care who. You just gotta
Mm.
go.
And has anyone ever sacrificed their peace for somebody else and it ended up being good for them? Like, let's be real, you know, you have to protect your peace. And people, I see it, you know, I've a lot of examples in my mind. I'm not going to speak to, but people will sacrifice their mental health for the sake of others. They'll sacrifice, you know, their stability for the sake of others. And you have to think about how the choices that you're making for other people affect you. And if the choices that you're making for other people are having negative effects on your life, you must reconsider for peace,
Absolutely.
because we all deserve it.
Absolutely.
Whew. And
Okay.
being vulnerable, being vulnerable don't mean putting yourself in vulnerable positions, okay? Like, we're not talking about
Ooh, that's
compromising
yes.
safety. That's not what we mean by this.
Exactly.
We mean being vulnerable
Now put that on
emotionally.
a t-shirt. Put that on a t-shirt. Being vulnerable. Say that again. Being vulnerable doesn't mean putting yourself in vulnerable spaces. That's a bar.
Or compromising positions.
Yeah.
Vulnerability doesn't mean compromise yourself for others. That's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
that's not the message here.
Exactly. I love that. That's so
uh,
true.
what more is the message is that, vulnerability can really allow us to and help us to and promote in us this opening up, this blossoming. Hashtag Powerpuff Girls. That is just so beautiful. Uh, sorry, I couldn't say blossom and not shout out my girls, but like, you really do blossom. You open up. There's this softness that you allow yourself to access within you, this ooey gooey goodness when you can be vulnerable. So carving out these spaces, holding your boundaries and saying this space is where my peace lies and protecting that, some beautiful things be coming up out of you when you do
Oh
that
yeah.
work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's very
And I mean,
important. But
yeah,
the
I
the,
mean,
the
like,
boundary.
as a creative, like, that's your life. Opening up and sharing as a creative is a lot of, I imagine, what you do. And you can't do it without vulnerability.
Oh no. And it's interesting because it's a lot easier for me to be vulnerable when I'm creating. So someone might read one of my books and say, Rachel, what? Like, I had no idea. When was this happening? Or like, I couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
um, I grew up with that, like, okay, very private. This is what it is. We don't, you just, keep everything
Mm-hmm.
in the family, in the, that.
Don't be telling
And
our
so,
business.
say that again.
Don't be telling our business.
Exactly, exactly. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just honestly, I can say that it probably made me initially more closed off than I realized initially. At some point, I started becoming more conscious of myself and who I wanted to become and becoming and who I wanted to be, not just like, okay, this is who you're supposed to be, this is how we've always done things, this is at some point I started saying, okay, wait a minute, is that, and so that's when I started allowing myself to be more vulnerable. But even so,
Mm-hmm.
it's still easier for me to be vulnerable if I'm writing. That's why literally almost everyone who read, especially my book Journey to Purpose, was like, oh my gosh, you were sad, you were going through this moment, you were depressed, whatever. They just couldn't tell because it's just wasn't, first of all, I like to be upbeat and chill by nature. So I'm really not necessarily going to walk around moping for the most part. So
Mm-hmm.
unless I'm telling you this is what's going on, you're probably not likely to know in a lot of cases. So it's a lot easier for me to just let it all out on the page. On the one hand, I'm not necessarily detached from it because it's me, but on the other hand, for some reason, it's more freeing for someone to be able to know me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's freeing in that once you've read those words or once you've heard that song, like once I've decided to, I think we were touching on this when we initially connected, that once I initially write these lyrics or once I initially write these, this book, you can't use what I said against me to diminish
Yeah.
me or hold it against me or be like, oh, well, you did this or here's what you used to be, because I've already reconciled with that. Yeah, I made that
Mm-hmm.
mistake. Yeah, I might not have been the best version of myself at that time, or whatever the case is. At that point, you can't hold who I used to be against me. I've already reconciled with it enough to release it on that page or in that song. So that
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability is beautiful. And then the other thing is that a lot of people need you need to be vulnerable for yourself, because at some point it becomes um, very taxing to hold things in all the time. So at some point you need to be vulnerable, but also other people need to see you being vulnerable too, because they're holding on to some things and they need to know that they're not alone in that situation. So in a one hand, I think vulnerability is self-serving, but it's also serving to other people around you, which ultimately I think is what purpose is that now I'm using this thing to help myself and also help you.
Yes, that intentionality. And also that realization that you gotta be vulnerable with yourself before you can be vulnerable with other people. Because if you're being
Yeah,
so hard and judgmental to you, there's no way the message will never go beyond you. You already shut it down.
exactly.
But if you become a space where you can be vulnerable, that's the beginning. That is truly the beginning. Then you can start to be vulnerable with other people. You can also start to become and present these spaces where people are like, oh, well, I can say something about myself and it's not going to be used against me later. I can say something about myself that makes me feel vulnerable or sad or maybe even a little ashamed and find validation and find a space where no one's piling on to that. You know, people are letting me explore that for myself and not judging the outcome that I come to. So, yeah, that's absolutely the journey and where community comes in and is so essential. Mm,
That's so,
girl.
yeah. I mean, honestly, what you just said is spot on, and that's like something that is I'm very mindful of now. I think
Mm,
because I've experienced that feeling of like, okay, if I open up about this particular thing, how is it going to be received? Because I want, see, the way I want people to deal with me is that you can feel comfortable being vulnerable with me, knowing that I may not disagree with you, but I'm open to listening. And that's how I want
mhm.
people to treat me. That I can say, this is what I'm feeling, this is who I am. And you might say, I don't necessarily agree with it. It's not necessarily, but I'm open to listening. I'm open to learning, because that's how I treat people, and that's all I really want. So for me, that's why that vulnerability piece is so important. Like you said, being vulnerable with self to say, okay, this is who I am, and this is what it is, and I
Mhm.
want you to be able to come to me and say, this is who you are, and not feel ashamed and not feel like, okay, I've got to hide this part because Rachel might not agree with me. It's true, I might not agree with you, but I'm not going to hold it over your head. We're just going to say that we're
Yeah.
on two different wavelengths, or we're on the same wavelength. So I
Mm,
need that's the kind of energy that I need around me. I need people. I need you could be comfortable being who you are. I'm looking to not judge you, but more so to understand, and that comes with the vulnerability aspect.
yes. And also sometimes, everybody ain't Rachel. So everybody is not going to hold space for people. Some people, you'll be vulnerable to them and they are going to find a way to hold that against you later. And that's why those boundaries that we talked about and the protecting of yourself and your space are so important because like I was like just thinking and being for real with myself and I'm like, wait, no, Rachel, like in most spaces, people haven't done that for me. Like
Yeah, you're right.
you are the
You're right.
first people who have actually been able
Yeah.
to hold that space that, really promotes vulnerability. So that's the other part. You got to find the spaces. Everybody won't provide it for you. And that's why you got to be willing to let go of some of the people who are currently in your life to make space for people who will allow you to be safe around them and to, validate you and be those spaces where you can be vulnerable in community.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. There are definitely people who are just waiting to find out some information, boy. They're like, aha, I've got it. I've got it. I've definitely come across people like that too. So you're right. They're just like waiting, but that's the part that I was talking about, where I think it's so important, where you have reconciled certain things within yourself to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is, I might not, I wasn't the best version of myself at that point. I did do some things,
Yeah.
and someone might hold it against me, but I've reconciled with it enough to the point where you
Mhm.
can only hold it over my head but so much. But you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there needs to be that balance where it's like you still have to be mindful of who you're saying what to, because energy is real. Energy is
Yeah.
real. I'm someone who's like big on energy and I'm very mindful, but even all human beings, you can get to everyone at some point with something that you say, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, or they know about you. So, it is a fine line. It is a fine line to also practice discernment and to say, I might not want you to know this much. Not that I'm ashamed of it or whatever, but I
Yeah.
might not need you to know that much. You,
No, but
you
I
know
also love what you said about like the part about being vulnerable with yourself is that you've already owned it. So
yeah.
whatever it is that you are bringing to community, you can know some people might try to use this against me. Ops are real, haters are real, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other people aren't. And the beautiful thing about it is like the more time you spend on working on you and holding yourself accountable and doing what is real, within a self-love journey, because it does take
Yeah.
a lot of energy. You got to focus on yourself and your own mess a lot. You don't even really got time to be a hater no more, right? So the more people we can get to confront their own emotions and their own lackings and whatever makes them feel ashamed, then the less time we have to be trying to hold anything over anybody else's head. And that's just real.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, because and that's why I do think everyone needs to go through a season of isolation, because in that
Mm,
isolation you've got to face some things, you've got to feel some things, and I think that it allows you to just empathize more, or I think it should, because now you're like, once you've sat in your own company and you've felt some things and you've faced yourself in all of your imperfections and all of the things that you do well, what have you, now you're able to realize like, I'm not perfect either. Why am I holding this over this person? I'm not perfect either. I've made some mistakes too. And the thing about mistakes is that they're not always deliberate. Sometimes they are. They're deliberate when you know better and choose not to do better. But there are
mm,
mistakes that I've made that I genuinely didn't know better, and I'm still beating myself up over it. I'm like, but I really didn't know better at the time. The
yeah.
problem is when you know better and you choose to still not do better. So, we just have to give ourselves that grace. And I think that that comes with the isolation, and that's where the vulnerability comes in, because now I've got to really get to know myself. I've got to
Mm,
be comfortable with who I am and who I'm becoming and who I want to be, and not just the idea of something to someone else. Like, I don't want to be and people have their own perception and ideas anyway,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, what I need to know is that who I'm presenting isn't who I think you want me to be. It's who I actually am, and that
Ooh, and
comes from that getting to know self.
it's such a power to reclaim for yourself, to
Yeah.
say like because the reality is you can be cast in any role in somebody's mind,
Oh yeah.
whatever, can be the this, the that, and the other. But at the end of the day,
Okay.
you have to know who you are, and then you're not worried about who people think you are. I used to do, like, people have always thought they knew who I was, what I was up to, what I was about, and I used to spend energy and time trying to convince people. And now I'm like, oh, you precious little baby Salenna, you just cared so much about the things you cared about, baby. And I ain't even judging you, but we ain't there no more, and that is beautiful.
Yeah. No,
Because
it's true.
who
I,
cares?
I man, some people really have been so far off. Some people are on the money. They'll be like, because by nature I really am fairly just chill. But some
Mhm.
people just won't. But I'm also can be, especially if I'm in a work setting, I can be really hi, bubbly, but it's not even being fake. It's just who I am, because if I don't like you, I'm really not going to say anything. So, some
Yeah.
people in that setting are going to say hi because, that's what they feel like they have to do. But you'll know if I'm not feeling you for real. I'm not going to, but, I mean, like, come on, there's no
Earth
need,
sign energy.
there's
We
no
don't
need
do it
to,
over
like,
here.
yeah, like it's just not happening. I think that because I don't know how big you are into signs. I think it's just a person too, but I know earth signs. I know a lot of Virgos. I love my Virgos, but I think by nature, earth signs are usually just very chill. But I've heard all types of things. Some people think I'm standoffish. Some people think, you hear all types of things, and I'm just like,
Intimidating. Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're like, all right, it is what I can genuinely say. I've gotten to a point genuinely where it rolls off my shoulder, like genuinely. I'm just like, all right, that's your opinion. All right, that's what you think. Cool. All right.
Yeah, my thing is like I actually am usually pretty bubbly, pretty happy, and then sometimes I'm more chill. Like sometimes when people get used to getting one thing from you, it's hard to accept anything else. And that can be a personality type or a phase of life you were in. Like people are going to cling to the version of you that they were the most comfortable with, that made them feel the best. And you got to leave them to do that because that's not your responsibility. Your right responsibility is to
Exactly.
yourself and to making sure that you are striving to be the best version of yourself. So
Exactly.
vulnerability is, I don't know if there's any other way to do it. Like, if you know a workaround where you can just not be vulnerable with yourself but still heal, let me know because as
Okay.
far
I
as
don't
I'm
think that's
concerned, it's
possible.
mandatory. Yeah, it's mandatory as far as I
Yeah.
know it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
it's yeah.
but that freedom you
Because you
claim,
can't, huh?
that freedom you get to claim though, that's real.
Exactly. But you're right. I don't think the two. I think because vulnerability requires honesty, so it's no way you could heal without being honest. What are you even healing if you're not honest about what you're looking to heal or what you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, vulnerability says be the fuck for real.
Okay.
With yourself first. Be for real, y'all.
Be
Um,
so for real. Be
be
so for
so
real right now.
so incredibly for real. Please, I beg of you. And watch your whole life change though. Like that's what this whole thing is about. That's like my whole message. That's what the point of this podcast is. Watch your whole life change as you really start to be vulnerable with yourself. And it's you can start small. Like you don't got to do any leaps and bounds. I trust me when I say you build the muscle for the leaps and the
Yeah.
bounds. So
Yeah.
start small. The leaps and bounds will come. We're
Yeah.
here to go with you every step of the way. Um,
Okay.
right, like, and on this note, like, I feel like we really said what needed to be said. Rachel, any last words? Anything that you wanted to say about vulnerability or that your spirit is telling you? Rachel, tell this to the people.
You touched on it right there. Is that it's starting small, and honestly, that's my approach to everything. Like
Hmm.
you because it gets overwhelming if you think you've got to have it figured out right away, or I still don't know how to let this thing go, or I still don't know how to confront this thing. Just start small, and you have a journal, so I actually consider writing to be very important. So just write things down. My phone is always my phone. I use my phone to do two things the most: text and write in my notes. I don't even like I write. I have a ton of notes. Like I'm always writing. I'm always releasing. I'm always just like need to get this out because I might not have a ton of people around me. I've been in a crazy season of this isolation might be lasting too long, but like I might need to get back out there some. But just write. Give yourself grace. Write and acknowledge your feelings. Don't run away from it because you've got to acknowledge it. You've got to sit with it. You've got to feel it in order to then take that next step. But the more we're running away, the more we're ignoring, the more we're pretending, the more we're doing things to cover up whatever pain or whatever hurt or whatever it is. We have to confront it. Nothing changes anything without us actually facing it. We have to be willing to face it to then make that change. But that's what I want is for all of us to be able to be vulnerable enough with self first and foremost to then be able to release and become the best versions of ourselves because we don't want to be going through life just you know what I'm saying, hurting all the time, being what we think other people want us to be because we don't think they're going to accept us. If they really knew, if this person really knew who I'm about and what I thought, I might lose some friends. Well, then you need to lose those people because they don't even know the true version of, they don't know you. They know who they want you to be. So you've got to be willing to become vulnerable enough to know yourself enough to then release that so that you're letting go of what needs to be let go of and you're bringing in what needs to be brought in, and what needs to stay stays. But ultimately it's
Yeah,
about just living a true life, you know what I'm saying?
absolutely. Ooh, those were good words. You are worthy, y'all. You're worthy of your own vulnerability. You are worthy of your own love. You're worthy of your own time. You're worthy of your own energy. You are worthy. Please believe us. You're worthy. You're worthy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes it's
Okay.
hard to believe that. Sometimes it's
No,
hard
it
to believe
can
that.
be. That's why I had to repeat
I,
it. You are worthy.
okay.
You
God
are
knows.
worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, tell them they worthy.
You are worthy. You are worthy. We are worthy. We're all worthy. We are all
Yes.
worthy.
We are worthy, okay, of this healing, of this love, of this amazing revolution that we are all a part of, this self-love revolution, okay? We're all worthy. We all here, we all on this planet together moving through space. And so we have the capacity and the time to love on each other while we're here and to heal on each other and to heal ourselves.
Hey, let's do it.
That being
Let's do it.
said, Rachel, how can people find you in the real world? How can they contact you? How can they chat with you? How can they give you money and pay you?
I am on Instagram, are the storyteller. Lately, the platform that I'm on the most is TikTok. I'm not even gonna lie. So that's actually under my business name, Pulse for Purpose, all one word, PULSEFORPURPOSE. And then my website is pulseforpurpose.com. You can always reach out there. So my books are on there, my music's on there. Yeah.
Yes. And as always, I am Salenna Green. You can find me on social media at Hot Girls Healing Podcast and at Salenna GG on Twitter. Y'all, I'm on TikTok too. Hot
Oh, I
Girls
gotta
Healing
find
Podcast.
you.
I'm actually going through my self-love prompted journal. I'm answering the prompts, and I absolutely invite you to join me on that journey as well. Journaling is something that I did struggle with. It's something I'm getting more into. I have a little note uh, in my notes too, because I love to journal in books. Like I'm a hands and like paper pen and paper girl. But I actually do have a note in my phone as well where I journal because I found it for me, like if I have something on my mind that I'm thinking a lot, that's what I start with for what to journal because it is something that's been kind of hard for me too. But y'all can connect with us on social media. We out here.
Hey,
Send us a message, like a video, share something,
okay.
and contact us. But outside of that, you know where to find me on Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you stream your podcast. I'm Salenna Green. This is the Hot Girls Healing Podcast, and I'll see you next time. Okay.
Hey.
So
Eee.
Since I know you're tired, since I know you're stressed, you were always favored and you were always blessed. It's all about that. Hot girls healing. We doing it our way. Hot girls healing. We better day by day. Hot girls healing. We doing it our way. Hot girls healing. And it goes.